in our yesterday session, we started understanding about how we are creating the web application in Spring Boot and what are the basic things we have to configure, especially when we are integrating user interface along with the backend, and that too as part of same project in a same project or monolithic application point of view. If you are maintaining front end layer or view layer in the same project, so simply I can call it as you are maintaining view layer in the same project. So you just taken a single project and view layer also you maintain in the same project. So this is very old approach, and generally nowadays is all about view layer is maintained as a separate application externally and backend as a separate application, and you are making a communication. So we will see that. But first, one example at least we need to understand when we are maintaining view layer also as part of our Spring Boot itself. What are the basic things we have to cover? We taken the details yesterday. So here, whenever you maintain view layer as part of your application, so nothing but especially in Java point of view and servlets point of view, whatever it is. So we have to use always JSPs, right? So we used to integrate JSPs with our view layer, and JSPs are all good. As part of JSPs, we will write HTML logic, CSS logic, all these logics. By using the JSP files and by using JSP elements also, we are going to write the common UI layer logic as part of any web application. So in this case, what Spring Framework is doing is, or sorry, Spring Boot is doing in this case is, Spring Boot by default not supporting the JSP. By default not supporting the JSP. So what it is doing is, whenever you want, we have a requirement, or whenever our application, Spring Boot application is expecting view layer also available in the same application, then we have to follow two extra configuration steps. That is, first point is adding the folders. So that means in the main folder, you have to create a web application folder, and inside that web-inf folder, you have to create. So inside that, you have to create your, going further, the JSP files, what you're going to create, everything you have to create inside the web-inf. So what I said here it is, I created one more folder inside the web-inf, so that my intention is I'll keep all my JSP files inside this folder. So that's why I created total 3 folders in the hierarchy, web app, inside the src/main. If you observe here, from here we can see that web app, and inside web app, web-inf, and inside web-inf view folder. So this is the basic folder structure we have to take care. And second step. So once you have done that, you have to do one more thing is, you have to add this dependency in our pom.xml file. In our Spring Boot pom.xml file, we have to add this dependency. So what is this dependency? Why we have to add this dependency? Yeah. So we have to add this dependency. So that's what I said right now, right? So by default, Spring Boot or internally, whatever the Tomcat server coming, they are not supporting, or maybe they are not embedded JSP functionalities. So to enable that functionality, what Spring Boot is saying is, yes, if you are going with this approach, and whenever you want to use JSPs as part of JSP pages or JSP files as part of your application to deal with view layer, so please add this dependency to your application, like that Spring Boot given this dependency. So once you added this dependency to our pom.xml file, and from this jar files, it will load couple of Java classes internally, and it will taking care of JSP functionalities also. So nothing but now simply the Spring Boot application is enabled with JSP functionality by internal Tomcat embedded server. So that's why we have to add this dependency. So step number 1, create the folder structure. Step number 2, add this dependency, or you, whatever order it is. Okay, fine. Order is not a matter. Fine. And after that, the third configuration, what you have to do is, you have to mention in the properties file where you are keeping your JSP files. What is the path of JSP files? So that means this is the step, one more step you have to do that. So what I will do is view resolver. Yeah. So these are the two properties you have to add in this case. What I will do is I'll add this So first step you can take like this. So context path, port numbers and all we discussed yesterday. It's a very simple. If you want to change default port number, default context path, that's common for every going further. Even if you are creating REST services also, at that time also those are all common. So the biggest problem. Yeah. So first thing is you have to add this dependency. Second thing is add the folders. Third thing is the based on the folders, whatever you created, you have to configure these two properties. And this is predefined property and values we have to provide like this. So for example, if I given here ABCD as my folder name, see until web app, web-inf, go through it as it is. But inside web-inf, you can give any folder name. It's not mandatory like only view. You can give ABCD. So if you give an ABCD, then what will happen in this case? Here, the property name will become ABCD. Okay. So that means what you are trying to say in this case is this will be called as view resolver. View resolver. So what is the point of view resolver? Or it is nothing but calling as this one also. Yeah, internal resource view resolver also. So nothing but resolving names of views. So what I'm trying to say in this case is what it is trying to say it is. So whenever going further, we are creating number of JSP files. So I may create 15, 20, 30 JSP files also. So that means .jsp files, right? So you will give something like welcome.jsp, hello.jsp, home.jsp, user.jsp, operations.jsp, something like that. The number of JSP files, you may create n number of JSP files. So what you are trying to say in this case is all JSP files, you are going to keep always inside this folder. Always you are going to create inside this folder. And that path you are telling to the Spring Boot, that path you are informing, that path we are configuring with Spring Boot MVC module. So that what Spring Boot MVC is going to do or Spring MVC module is going to do, whenever, I'll show you that in the logic we are already having. Whenever I given, for example, welcome like that, I given a file name. What is this? I given only file name. I did not provided any JSP, .jsp something. So I provided in this case file name. So I just provided file name. So the moment I provided file name, what Spring MVC will do is it will take this file name and it will go to this folder. It will verify with this file name in this folder. How it knows that it has to go into this folder? It's not because you created, because whatever you created, you configure, right? So what immediately Spring MVC module will do is by taking this file name, it will go to this path, nothing but this folder. So inside that folder, it will verify with this file name and with this extension. So nothing but ultimately what's happening. So nothing but, for example, what's happening in this case is, so it is checking in this folder prefix and followed by what is the name you given welcome, right? And then suffix is .jsp like that dynamically. So this is what we given. So I'll show you that. This is what we given and based on that what it is doing is, so you given view name like this. So this will be called as view name, nothing but which JSP file name. View name is nothing but which JSP has to be loaded like that. So you are telling to the Spring MVC module, hey module, load welcome JSP file. For that, what you are doing, you are giving only view name, not, you don't need to give .jsp every time. Simply view name is given. So then internally what it will do? So by taking this file name, it will go to this folder. Why it is going this folder? Because you configured. So that's why it will go to inside this folder and it will take this file name and it will verify with this file name, with this view name, is there any JSP file available or not? If available, then what it will do is I mean, how it is knows that you given only welcome, whether it is a .html, whether it is a .jsp, how it is knowing that you given prefix as JSP. So that's why it will form like this and it will verify welcome.jsp is available inside this folder or not. If available, if available, then Spring MVC module will take that JSP file and that JSP file will be rendered or that JSP file will be sent back to the client. Client means whoever is sending the request. So that means now that JSP file is going to be attached as a response. So that JSP file is sending back to the client level. So now that JSP file loaded and that response you will see that. So for example, if you see our yesterday example, okay, so I added this. Why? Because we taken our folder name as view. So let me bring it back to view only. View and here also prefix. Yeah, here also view. So I given intentionally view point of view, just you can give any name. So now if you observe my point, here it is again from this diagram. Yeah, here. What I said, a request always comes from the view layer. View always, view layer, nothing but a client. Generally, it will be called as clients. So clients. So in this case, what is my client? Browser is my client. First time, whenever I open browser is HTTP client. A browser is called as HTTP client, guys. Okay, because these browsers, whatever browsers we are using day to day, these are all runs always on HTTP protocol. You know the protocols, right? So what is a HTTP protocol? You know that. So all our web applications mostly we will build on the HTTP protocol only. Similarly, we do have SMTP protocols for mails, FTP file transfer protocols like that. FTP file transfer protocol, SMTP simple mail transfer protocol. So like that we have different protocols in the computer networks. It's all computer network subject. But our websites or whatever the web applications we are implementing and whatever we are accessing from the browsers are 100% always implemented on the HTTP protocol only. So that's why you will use always and along with what, for example, when you are accessing google.com also, what is that HTTP? That is what? That means that application is running on the HTTP protocol. So the moment you take in, what's happening here it is. So this HTTP is nothing but that's what. This Google dot application, software application implemented as a web application and built on top of HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol. I mean, all our web applications mostly will implement on the HTTP protocols only. So that's why these browsers will be called as HTTP clients. Once I'm moving to the REST services also, I'll introduce some of the software like Postman or Insomnia, something like that. Then also I'll call those as a REST clients or HTTP clients. So we will see that what and all. But browser is called as a REST then HTTP clients. So for the first time, whenever I want to access Instagram, what we used to do, we have to send a request. And what is my request URL? This is the request URL, localhost 8. Okay, something like that. So let's take that URL and understand step by step. So I opened my client and I'm clicking on enter button. So that means what happened in this case? So from the browser, you given this URL. So from where? From the browser. Nothing but, for example, Chrome browser. First time I opened Chrome browser and from the URL, you enter this. Okay. So before that, let's start your application. You know that always web applications should be deployed on the servers or your application should be up and running. Nothing but deployed on a server. Yeah. So my Tomcat server started with context path. Okay. That means my application is started very well. So what I'm doing, still it is up and running. Okay. So you can see here also. Cool. Now, first step number one, what you did, you sent a request to You are sending request to this URL. Now my point is how you created this request. Step number one, this is what we are doing, right? So now our point is how we created this URL. So let's understand. First point before sending the request. So if you go to the controller and if you understand our architecture diagram, what I said, whenever you send a request from the front end, okay, from the client, it will go to the controller. So controller should identify what request you are sending. So controller should identify whatever the request you are sending. Now that should reach to controller. So controller is nothing but what? A Java class only, but you are going to, so in Spring MVC, what is a controller here it is? Okay, now let's start understanding the terminology. What is a controller here it is? A class which is annotated with @controller is called as controller class. Basic point, very basic definition. So what is the advantage of controller class? So now, as per my MVC architecture point of view, the first thing is we have to maintain always controller. Controller is going to take every incoming request from the clients, from the front end point of view. Now, how can I say a class is a controller means in Spring framework point of view, which you are annotated with controller annotation is called as controller class. Okay, fine. Now, inside controller class, we are going to define request mapping URL, request mapping methods with respect to URI patterns. So what is my point here? It is in controller classes we are going to define request mapping methods. So request mapping methods is nothing but simple method. I mean, first thing it is a method only, Java method only. For example, if you go to this class and if you take this method called as say welcome or something. So this is a Java method. If I remove this, what is this? This is simply a Java method only, right? It's a simple Java method. But when I can say this as a request mapping method is, let's understand here it is. We are going to define request mapping methods with respect to URI patterns and, okay, I'll add this one also. HTTP methods like that. So what I'm trying to say in this case is, okay, the request comes from the front end only like this. Now, what is my intention in this case? I'm sending, if you taken this into this URL pattern, this is always common URL because until Instagram what context path, you given context path yesterday. Yeah, if you see here, we given what context path. So that URL will be common always. It doesn't, okay. So that means localhost :8888/Instagram until /Instagram is a common URI in your URL always. Always this is a common. Tomorrow, I mean, in our same Instagram application, if you created almost 200 URI patterns or 200 URL patterns. So in 200 URI patterns, this Instagram is common. Why? You made it as a context path. Context path means parent path, I can say simply. But this after context path, whatever you define here, so that means the way how to form URL patterns in this case is host name colon port number host name. So how to prepare the URL syntax forming URL. These are all you know in the servlets. That's why I'm going a bit fast. And then port number / if you have any context path, give the context path. So context path will be available always. After that, this is the place you will give always something like slash welcome, slash sign up, slash login, slash upload, slash delete, whatever you will do, those are all things will comes always here it is. So that means this section will change always. Context path will not change because in our application we define the context path. For example, assume if I remove this property, nothing but I'm commenting. So let me start my application one more time. So now my application doesn't have any context path. So that means now what will happen? This URL will become like this. Because I don't have any context path, direct URI pattern I have. So nothing but in such case, it will become like this without context path. So I don't have any context path, directly host name, localhost and port number, and directly the URI patterns I have to follow. If you observe here, what it is saying, context path empty. So nothing but, okay, cool. So with respect to this empty context path, localhost colon 8888 slash. So understand the point. From this, you have to understand all this. So with respect to this is what you are preparing, right? So, and yesterday I shown you one more statement. Yeah, this one. So with respect to this, the moment you configure context path, yeah, this one. So the moment you have context path like that. So if you don't have context path, then it will become like this. So with context path slash welcome. Without context path, directly welcome. And now what is this welcome? So what is this URI pattern? So what is this URI pattern means? That's what I said. Port number, host name, port number, context path if you have. If you don't have context path, then directly we will give the URI pattern. Now what is this URI pattern is, at the controller class level, we define one more annotation called as get mapping annotation. So I'll do one thing. I'll remove get mapping. I'll involve this later. I don't want to take it right now. I'll involve one more annotation called as request mapping. So understand now. So this is very good thing to take right now. Okay. So here, okay. So if you observe here, I given a statement. What is that statement? In a controller class, we are going to define request mapping methods with respect to URI patterns and HTTP methods. So that means what I'm trying to say in this case is, in the controller class, in the backend application, tomorrow when you are implementing REST services also, the first primary contact will be controller for the view layer. So you have to define a method, a simple Java method, and that should be mapped to the URI pattern as well as HTTP method. Now, my requirement is demanding, so you know that, right? Whenever we are sending request from the URL pattern, sorry, from this location, from the browser, from the URL location, whatever the request you are sending, for example, we used to send Instagram.com, right? So now can you tell me this is what HTTP method internally it is using? So by default, what HTTP method we can send from this location? So you know HTTP methods? So what are the HTTP methods we have? We have 7 to 8, 7 I think we have. But out of that, the most popular 4 we will take first. Get, post, put, and delete. So these are the 4 basic operations generally we will use in most of the times. So these methods are called as get, post, put, delete as HTTP methods. So that means if you are sending a get request, then your request mapping method, yeah, this one. So method will become, let me do that, request method dot get. So what is the point in this case is, so if you observe this Java method, what I'm trying to say it is, any request, yeah. So any request coming from the view layer with HTTP method get and with URI pattern slash welcome, then this method has to be executed. Like that, we return the logic. We return the logic. So that means now, for example, I am writing one more line logic. Sys out of request received, request received by controller. So processing request. See, we are understanding internal workflow, guys. Okay, and as well as we are understanding first example. So it will take some time. That's what I told you, but we will try to go very slow, no problem. Because same knowledge is used in the REST services also. So what I did here it is, we written a controller class. When we can say a class as a controller class is, we have to annotate that class with @ controller. So and if you see here, what is framework stereotype controller. Point number one. And then you have to write a method also, a Java method, which is responsible for that method will be executed, that controller method, whenever a incoming request came to the backend from the view layer with HTTP method type get as well as okay, the URI pattern as slash welcome, then this special method will be executed. For example, say here, I'm writing one more method in the same class. Okay, so something like user register or whatever it is, something like that. Now, in this case, if I return something like post, for example, I'm writing and slash register. Now, in my class, I have total 2 request mapping methods. In the controller class, I have total 2 request mapping methods. One is this one, and another one is this one. So, and associated to this is the method you are having. And similarly, this one. So, whenever I sent a request, now for example, I'm sending this request. Where is my URL I created? Yeah, so this one. Okay, now I send request like this. I send request like this. So here there is no context bar because my application started without context bar. Okay, no problem. But now observe the point, here it is. So I'm preparing 2 URLs in this case. One is slash welcome, one is slash register. So whenever I sent a request slash welcome from the view layer, from the front end layer point of view, what will happen whenever you start a Spring Boot application? Internally, some handler mapping mechanism will be executed. I'll explain that also later, but not right now. Simply, I can tell you like internally, whenever you started Spring Boot application, what it will do is on high level, it will scan all the controller classes and it will make a list internally. What are the request mapping methods written by the developers? And it will collect all this request mapping information internally and it will store like this. Now, the moment you sent a request, okay, so like slash localhost like this, then immediately what the request will go to the backend application, nothing but controller, nothing but Spring Boot MVC point of view. Now, what Spring Boot MVC will do in this case is MVC module, it will verify what HTTP method this guy sent. For example, this is get. This is get because from the URL you can send only get request always. So you send HTTP method get request as well as this is the URL pattern. Now what it will verify is, it will verify with this HTTP method combination get as well as with this URI pattern, is there any controller method available or not? Yes. We return a controller class, and inside the controller class with get and welcome combination, we have a method. So then Spring MVC internally starts executing this method. How it knows that this method has to execute? It is verifying what is the HTTP method you sent from the client. So whatever the HTTP method you send from the client, from the view layer, and whatever the URI pattern you send, based on that it decided like, okay, let's execute this method. Now, for example, I sent a request, second request like this, /register. So the moment I sent again /register request, okay, /register request, assume somehow I sent it as post. Then what will happen in this case is, it will verify, is there any method written by the developer or maybe any controller method available with combination of URI pattern /register and as well as post method. So it is checking in the list of request mapping methods. Yes, available. Post and as well as /register is matching. Then Spring MVC module will start executing body of this method. So now for example, I sent some reason get only. So URL pattern is register, but I sent get. Now what will happen? Same verification will happen one more time. With /register and get combination, is there any controller method available or not? Is there any controller method available or not? By the time Spring MVC module internally collects all these details, okay, with this combination, whatever we written in the controller classes level, it will scan all the controller classes. So it will scan all controller classes. Yes. So it will scan all controller classes and collects information of all request mapping methods. Request mapping methods. So as of now, how many controller classes we return? One controller class and two request mapping methods we return, right? So tomorrow I can add any number of controller classes. So what it will do, it will scan all the controller classes. For example, assume I added 10 controller classes, and from all 10 controller classes, yeah, from all 10 controller classes. So how it knows that which is a controller class, which is not a controller class? Because of this annotation. So tomorrow if you added, for example, see here, new class, something else I am writing, some user management control. So can I say this class as a controller class? No, it's not a controller class. Not a controller class. Why? How can I say that? You are not added any annotation at the rate controller. So that means whenever it is not a controller class, this class is not scanned by Spring MVC module when we started. When we start. So that means this class is not considered. When it will consider, it will observe, okay, at the rate controller, right? So So whenever you started your Spring Boot application, what it will do is, that means whenever you deploy, it will identify, okay, this class is a controller class. Let's enter into this controller class and it will pick up all this information. Information number one, information number two, like that. It will pick up and it will store in some cache memory, some runtime level. In the cache memory level point of view, they will store like this. They will store like this. So tomorrow, if you return 10 controller classes, from all 10 controller classes, all mapping methods, information is collected and stored in a memory, in a cache memory. I can say like simply cache memory means runtime memory pointer. So as of now, we have only one controller and two request map. Tomorrow you may have lot of request mapping methods from different controller classes, and it will store all this information. And you have to mention which HTTP method it has to support like this. Put something like update and then user update. So like that, it will collect all the request mapping methods. This is maintained in the runtime level. Now, whenever I sent a request, localhost colon 8888/log, and I'm sending HTTP request. So this is the request I sent now. Now what it will do immediately? View layer, you sent a request. Let's do one thing. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take here. Okay. So this is how it collected all the information in the memory level. Spring Boot MVC module at runtime level, in the memory level, it collected all this mapping information. So this will be called as handler mappings. Mapping information. So it will store somewhere else all the mapping information. Now what I said in this case, in the HTTP client Chrome browser point of view, I'm sending welcome request /welcome. Okay, so right now I don't have any context path, so I'll keep /welcome directly like this. And definitely whenever a request is going from the front end or client, you have to send always a HTTP request. It is always commonly goes. For example, if you see here, developer tools. So Instagram.com. From URL, what URL I'm sending? Instagram.com. So what HTTP method will go? Always, if you go and see in the network point of view somewhere, request URL. What methods? Get method. Request method is what, guys? Get method. So this is 200 OK response status code. So you will come to know all this in the REST API's point of view. Status codes, all these things. Okay. But anyway, so what you understood? What request method went? Get. And if you given any phone number and any passwords, okay. And let's do one thing. Let me clear it. And if you are clicking on login, then again, so if you see here, what request it is going? Post. It is sending what request? Post request. So you're sending user. So that means every time whenever you are sending a request from front end to back end, 100% the request method will be available. You have to send always a request method. What request method you are sending? See here. That is what I'm trying to say. Request URL plus request method. Request URL, request method. If it is Instagram, this is what? So in this case, this is request URL, this is request method. That's what I'm talking from last 15-10 minutes. So this is what? Request URL, request method. So now you sent a request URL and request method like this from the front end. Now it will go to the backend. So backend is nothing but our Spring Boot MVC module or web module. Now what Spring Boot or Spring MVC module internally it will do is it will verify with this combination /login and get combination, is there any handler mapping request method available or not? To handle this request, so that means what it will do is to handle this request, is there any mapping method available or not? Is there any mapping method available or not? It will verify. So with this combination, if you observe here, there is no /login URL pattern. Welcome not matching, register not matching, update not matching. So that means finally what happened? This URL pattern is not there. Then handler mapping point of view, not found. Answer is not found. Then you will get response as not found. What not found? The URI pattern, whatever you send, some error response, you will get it back. See here whether it is right or wrong. Right now I have what? Only welcome and register, right? And that too, this is get and this is post, right? So let's see. I'm sending request for welcome now with the combination of get. Okay, let me explain that one also. So now I send one more request like this / welcome and get combination. So now the request will goes to the backend again. The request reaches to backend. So in the backend, what Spring Boot MVC is doing to handle this request, it is verifying with that combination any methods available or not. This is all runtime level Spring Boot MVC is checking. Okay, so to handle this request, is there any mapping method available or not? So what it will do? It will. So these two methods or three methods assume available from the controller class called as this controller class, home controller. Okay, so it will maintain this information. From this controller, these are the methods available. And from the user controller, whatever the controller classes you written. So then from this controller class, these methods are available like that. Now what it will do? It will take this combination. What / welcome / get any with this combination, any mapping information available or not. Spring Boot immediately taking these two information, request URL, request method, both information it is taking and verifying in this whole configuration mapping level. So it is verifying welcome is matching as well as what method you written, get method you written. So these are all Spring annotations. I'll explain this. Simply I'm telling you. Now what it will do in this case is combination found, get and welcome. So that's why now what Spring Boot MVC do internally is it will start executing this method. It will start executing say welcome method. So now, so that means what happened? Found. That mapping is found. And with respect to that mapping, what is the controller class? Home controller class. And what is the method from that controller class? Because tomorrow you may have 10 methods, 100 methods here. So 100 methods available in the same controller class. But out of this controller class also, for this URI pattern, what is the method? Say welcome is the method. So that means then internally Spring Boot is saying, yes, there is a mapping found for this / welcome and get point of view home controller. And from that controller, this is the method. So class is home controller class. And from that class also, the method is which method? Say welcome method. So nothing but this is the syntax it will return. Now what Spring Boot will do is it will start executing. It will start executing this method. It will start executing this method. Now if you given again, okay, something like / hello. So I given hello. So in this case, what will happen? Again, get request you send. It will go. It will verify / hello and get combination. Is there any mapping available in entire project or? So if you see here, not matching, not matching, not matching. So then again you will get error like this. So this is how internally Spring Boot or Spring MVC module verifying the incoming request with respect to controller classes and controller methods. So this mapping information is called as handler mapping information. So what it is? Handler mapping. It is, I'll explain again, same thing in the future also, one more time, when we are dealing with REST services also. Handler mappings information. So like this, it will scan all controller classes. For example, see here. Okay, I'll add one more controller. So I'll make @controller later. First, we will see at least one method point of view what's happening. Now, so what I said here, you send this request, right? Yes, mapping is found. Where in the class called as this method point of view, the mapping is found. So with this combination, here the method is available and it will start executing the method. So that means now this line will be executed and finally your return. Now, whenever you return here, I given a word called as welcome and I given a name called as view resolver. In a comment, I mentioned as view resolver. So what is this point? This is also we have to understand now. So that means once the logic is executed, so you will refine the logic. Let's send the request first. Okay, so see here, I'm sending Instagram. I think we don't have Instagram now because we removed the context path, right? So that's why. So welcome, localhost 8888 and directly welcome. This is the welcome. And get request only I'm sending. Why? Because from the URL, whatever the request you are sending, it is always get only. Okay. So now see here, I send the request. What? You got this response back. Welcome to Spring Boot web module training, all this thing. So if you go and observe the console also, yeah, this dispatcher servlet I'll explain, guys. Actually, this is the flow we have to explain. Dispatcher servlet, handler mapping and all. On high level, I'm explaining right now. Okay, what's happening internally and all. But again, I'll explain you. There is a concept available. I mean, internally, how Spring MVC module, dispatcher servlet will be called as front controller. All these stories I'll explain. First, let's take one small application where we are sending request and receiving response back, and in between what's happening on high level we are discussing. But what's happening in the dispatcher servlet point of view, I'll explain. What I will do is I'll stop it. I'm starting it because I added this line after starting the application. Okay, so now my application is started successfully, right? Let's send the request one more time. /welcome. So what happened? You got the response. So from where you got this response? If you observe here, request received by controller and processing the request. Nothing but this logic is executed. This logic is executed. But my point here it is, why, how it knows that if this JSP file got should be processed as a response. So this is the message only you got as a response, right? Then how what Spring MVC module did in this case? So understand the point. Now what you did, the moment you given string and you return string value, right? So I said you given view name in this case. What we provided here it is, you provided your returning view name. You are returning view name. So returning view name means what? I given welcome. So now the story is, this is the story. This is the story I explained you, right? So with respect to that, what is the view name I given? Welcome. So that means once that method is executed, you given view name as welcome. So now what Spring MVC will do in this case is, in this case, you given view name as welcome. So what it will do is, in the memory level, again, there is a concept available, internal resource view resolver. I'll show you that once this example is completed. So what, in the runtime memory point of view, there is an object available called as view resolver object. Simply, I can call it as view resolver object only. So these are all abstracted, guys. Abstracted means hidden details. Whatever I'm explaining, hidden abstraction. We used to call, right? In the Java point of view, what is an abstraction? Showing the features, hiding the implementation. That's what Spring Boot is also doing in this case. A lot of things they implemented internally. They are not exposing to the developers. They are saying like, use this, your work will be completed. They are highlighting the features, they are hiding the implementation. So in this view resolver, what is the configuration you given? This is the one, right? So this information is maintained in the view resolver. Now, based on this view resolver, and what is the view name I given here? If you go here, welcome. So I'm returning welcome as a view name. So now what will happen in this case is, what Spring MVC will do is, it will take this view name and it will go to it will ask the view resolver, hey view resolver, with this view name, is there any JSP file available or not? It's like that. Now, what view resolver will do in this case is, with respect to the view resolver information, where you are storing all your JSP files, I mean, generally view files in this location. So then Spring MVC module will go to this location, view folder. Okay, cool. It came to view folder, and then it will verify with the JSP. Welcome only you given, and it will understand like in this folder with this name, with this extension, is there any file available or not? Yes. If you see here, welcome is the file name. With welcome.jsp, I written a JSP file. What happened? Automatically, now what view resolver is saying is, with respect to view resolver, yes, file existed. What file existed? Welcome.jsp. Welcome.jsp. Now, Spring Boot MVC module. Now, Spring Boot MVC module, what it will do? Internally, Spring MVC, what they will do is, they will send this JSP file as response back to client. Response back to client. So that means they will process, they will render the JSP file, welcome.jsp file, welcome.jsp file as a response point of view. They will send this welcome.jsp file back to the client. So that means now what happened? The request came, it is all executed. Once the request execution is completed, what happened again? The response came back, and whenever it is sending response, which file is processed? Welcome.jsp. Welcome.jsp. So that's the reason the moment it loaded welcome.jsp as a response, if you observe this method again in this case, yeah, here. So you given view name. So that means you are returning view name, nothing but JSP file. Which JSP? Welcome.jsp. So automatically this body is rendered on your response level, in the front end level, in the view layer level. Now, for example, you can guess and tell me, I'm giving here hello. So now what will happen in this case? You given hello, but my request pattern is welcome. Okay. Yeah, just understand what this pattern. So stop the application and start it one more time, because whenever you made a code change, please start the application. Even to rectify this problem also, like whenever you made a change and you have to restart your application, right? Automatically restarting, also Spring Boot provided a feature that I will explain later, dev tools. I will not involve right now. I'll involve later. Anyway, so now what is my point in this case again? Again, I'm sending the request. Okay, I'm sending the request. And with what? This is the request pattern you have to send. Request URL is /welcome and get method. Okay, I sent it. And then it came here and it started executing this method. And whenever I executed this method, this time what happened, guys? You have view name as what? Hello. You have view name as hello. So nothing but your view name became /hello. Nothing but what it is expecting, hello.jsp. Hello.jsp file. But if you go and observe here, in this case, you don't have hello.jsp. You have only welcome.jsp. Yeah. So if you see here, yeah. So if you see here, this is what expectation. Hello.jsp. But do you have hello.jsp here? No file existed. So that means what happened? You return hello, but to process that, you don't have hello.jsp. No file form. No file form. So then what will happen? Understand here. Now let's send the request one more time. localhost. See, I'm sending same URL one more time. This time what you got? This is what response you got. Okay, so this is the error response, you got it back. And what it is saying, this error response, leave about first line, unexpected error, not found, something like 401. So what not found? That return JSP file, what you are returning from here, with that name, there is no JSP file. So that is how the flow is executed in this case. Now to make sure this method is executed as it is, what I can do? I can write one more JSP file like C new file hello.jsp something. Okay, hello.jsp. Now you can write something. User hello HTML form. Okay, these are all we can do that. I don't want that much level. Styles I'll take. So now in the hello.jsp, I given this one. So something like that. So let's stop and start our application. Now what will happen? With respect to this controller method, you given hello. This time hello.jsp is available. If you see here, hello.jsp. So the moment you return hello, internally what view resolver will do? It will take that file name and it will go and verify the view folder it's available and it will start processing this JSP file as a response. And this content of this JSP file is processed as a response. This content of the JSP file is going to be processed as a response. So whether it is right or wrong, see here. Now send the same request /welcome one more time. See, understand they don't confuse with this URL pattern and what is the view name you are returning. This URL pattern is all about what you declared here. This, whatever you are returning, it's all about this one. Whatever you are returning is all about view names, nothing but JSP file names. Whatever the annotation point of view, so whatever the annotation point of view we taken here, request mapping annotation point of view, that is all comes under with respect to this URL pattern. From here, what you are sending. So now see what happened. This is the heading, this is the paragraph, and you got all the blue color shading, all these things. So this is how internally it is recognizing controller method. So you no need to see the advantage of this one is, if you see here, yeah, I written welcome now, right? So even if I am sending, okay, I can't send post right away from the URL pattern. I am sending get and register. Now what will happen? With respect to get and register, this method will be executed. Request received by controller, processing request of register, something like that. I'm writing the message. And what I'm writing? Welcome. So that means this time this welcome.jsp executed for this point of view. Okay, cool. Now I said you can write any number of methods in a controller class. 100 methods also can write. So that is the advantages. Those are the advantages I explained you, especially if you go here, recent. Yeah. So if you observe here or not, one thing I told you at that time. If it is a control servlets, for every URI pattern, you have to write your own. Now understand the point. You have to write your own servlet every time, and you have to use only these method names. You have to use always this. If it is a get, you have to use do get. If it is a post, do post. Other than these methods, you can't use user defined methods. Point number one. And for every URI pattern, you have to write a individual servlet. So if you have 100 URL patterns, 100 Java files you are creating, and that too you have to use always these method names as it is based on your requirement. There is no choice for the user or developer to write his own method names, and you have to write this logic always mandatory. Okay, and after that I said one more point is Spring Framework. Yeah, I said what? In single Java file itself, you can write more than one URI pattern. If you want, you can write all also. And you can write your own method names also. So, and you are not writing boilerplate code, nothing but you are not saying like every time I am writing something, same code again and again, same code again and again. You are not doing. So, all the things you brought it at one level. So, see here, yes, right. Request mapping one, request mapping two. I want one more URL pattern. Yes, I can create. So post some simply, okay, something like login and user login. So I'll write some welcome message and I can write one more URL mapping method. So post put reset password. Reset password. So reset password. Reset password. So that means what is the beauty of this framework in this case is you are not, if it is same thing, if you want to implement in the servlets, servlet number one, servlet number two, servlet number three, servlet number four. Four servlets you have to implement. And for every servlet, you have to write this story like extend HTTP servlet. And as well as in every servlet point of view, you have to write only these methods do get, do post for every individual servlet. But here you are writing your own methods. You want, you can write ABC also, XYZ also. Your own meaningful method names you are writing, and you are writing everything in one place. You are writing everything in one place. Okay, fine. Now, is it available only one controller? Can I make one more controller? Yes, obviously. So write one more Java class and make it as a controller, and create your own request mapping methods. For example, what I will do here it is, I'm moving this three to here. It's okay. You okay? So do. Hello or whatever it is. So now I added one more controller class. It's up to my choice. I can add any number of controller classes and I can write any number of methods inside any controller class. There is no limitation for that. Now this class is a controller class. Now this is a controller class. I can say yes, it is a controller. Why? I added annotation. So this class is scanned by Spring MVC module when you started the application. Now this class will be scanned. Why? It's a controller class. Okay. So now again, whenever it is scanned, what will happen this time? You added few more methods, right? So in the mapping level, yeah. So now in the mapping method, whenever you started application, what it will do? It will collect all this information. So it will collect all this from this user controller class. So what it will do? It will make a mapping like this from this controller class. These are the methods available, and this is the method available. So, oh, sorry. Yeah. So it will make a mapping in the runtime memory level like this for this controller. Now earlier, this is the controller, home controller, right? Yeah, home controller. When you started your application, now total two controller classes got scanned. From the home controller, you have slash welcome, slash hello, slash welcome, and I'll do one thing. So dynamically, it will scan and it will maintain information like this. Now slash welcome, slash hello in the home controller. In this controller class, see, you don't need, meaningfully I given controller name as controller. It's better to give all this, but you can give any class names. So you can see here total two controller classes, and in this controller, these are the two handler mappings. I mean two request mapping methods in this controller, two request mapping methods. Now let's send a request again. User login, reset password, right? So I think these are all post and put. You can't send not from the URL pattern. For that, you have to write some forms. I'll explain you what is a form and all tomorrow. For time being, get only I will write. Tomorrow I'll show you post you can't send from the URL pattern. Okay. My intention is whether it is considering all controller classes or not. For this example, I'm taking all this. For time being, I'll make get only all. So let's send the request for reset password. So how to hit this URL? How to hit this method? Can you frame an URL? This is the URI pattern, right? This is the URI pattern. Before that, what you have to attach? Localhost colon port number. What is our port number? 8888. What is our context path? No context path. You are not given any context path. So that's why no context path. Now let's send this URL. Reset slash password. Reset slash password. Whether I started my application or not, I'm not sure. I'll restart it again. When you made any changes, please restart it. So I restarted again. See here, I sent a request like reset password. So okay, let's do one thing. I'll create one more JSP file. New file reset password. I'll show you dot. Tomorrow we'll take one request form, login form, and all these things, and I'll say like password reset success. Please try with new password like that. You will prepare your by using your front end skills. You will write all these HTML tags, all these things. Okay. So what I will do now? So go to reset password controller. Yeah, this is the URL I given, right? Yeah, I will give this file name here. You don't need to give .jsp. That will taken care by the view resolver. So just give that. Now what will happen? With this combination, we are sending the URL, right? So what is the URL pattern? Get and reset password. Your combination you are sending reset password. And how do we know that this is a get? If you want, you can see from here also. I mean, blind rule is whenever you are sending URL from the URL location, it is always get request only. Even in our case also, you are sending get only. Generally, when you are clicking on the buttons, any hyperlinks, okay, from any websites, like for example, right now you saw that, right? Login. You clicked on the button of login. Then what request went? Post. So when, okay, that means in the login level, they might have written post request. They written post like that. So login level, they will return post request, all these things. I think this is all front end skills. Okay. Okay, so like if you go here, forms. Yeah, here. So like they'll write forms here. So what type of form on submit, what it has to be, action, what page it has to be. This example I'll take. We'll take tomorrow. Ourselves also will take one user registration, user login, one flow. I will show you from front end to back end. We will also create like this. We will also say like first name, last name, password, username, and click on submit. Then automatically the data will go to the controller and controller to service to repository, and repository to database. Like that, we will make an example tomorrow. For that, first of all, you should know how this mapping is happening internally, how the request is coming from view to controller, and how to form these URLs. So how to form the URLs. So what is the context path? You should know that. So now I'm sending a request like slash welcome, sorry, slash reset password. And sending what request? Get request. Okay. If you see here, I'm sending get request. So if you observe here, see elements, password reset success, I got response. See here, what request? Get request. That is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so this is the request URL, this is the path. So now what happened again? View name you given reset password. Yes, it is available this time. So that's why it executed this password file now, this JSP file. If you observe the response also, password reset success. Please try with a new password, like that you are getting. Now if you are sending welcome, welcome message you are getting. Okay, if you are sending hello, you are sending different message, right? So that's how you have to make, or you have to understand the flow, guys. So I'm going very slow. I know that I covered only very small point today with respect to view layer, what URL we are sending, how to form URLs, and what URL we are sending. And for that, in the controller classes level, in the Spring Boot MVC point of view or Spring MVC point of view, what are the controller classes we written, how we written the request mapping we written. So these methods only stand and maintained by internally. This is request mapping method, and this is the annotation from the Spring framework. I'll explain again in detail about this annotations also, but I can't do everything within 1 hour, right? So that's why just what my suggestion is, by tomorrow, please make 3-4 controller classes from yourself, and at every controller level, write two methods. Okay, two request mapping methods. Write only get only. If you have knowledge, like how to write put to post from the JSP perspective or HTML perspective, like what you did in the servlet's point of view. Maybe if you have knowledge, try that. No problem. Try that. In the form level, JSP form level, give something like form colon action equal to so and so JSP file, method equal to post. Like that, you can try that. There is no harm in that. If you don't have that, I mean, but you should have by this time at least basic things, or else at least try like for everything you the get at least, and change the URL patterns in all controller classes, and then try to hit from the browser like slash hello slash welcome slash password reset slash update password or whatever it is, create user slash delete user. Like that, you can write a message like request received for creating users, request received for deleting user, like that. And for everything, write a respective JSP file and return that JSP file from this controller. Okay, as a string format. And I'll explain you so many things, step by step process. If I want to send a dynamic message, what we have to do. So like that, we will discuss so many other points also in the next session. Give me a moment. I forgot to say one point. I thought of telling you, and in the flow, I forgot. Mhm. I'm not sure. Yeah. So anyway, maybe that point I'll get it back now later also. So my suggestion is you are in the verge of training. That means you are going to complete. I mean, you are in the end of training. So that means you are. This is the most important, and whatever the modules you learned so far, like core, advanced, sorry, JDBC, JPA, or whatever you learned so far, servlets. Okay, these are all one story. But what you are learning is now the one and only story. So I already shown you my. If you go any real-time application, these are all the things available. So the controller classes, how to write this. You should be in a position like if someone else is asking, write a simple endpoint. So I'll tell you what is the endpoint also. These are all called as endpoints. In different people, different terminology. But I'll introduce most of the terminology what we use in real-time applications or in day-to-day office point of view. So these what's happening, what are the values you are giving? I'll explain one by one. What is this method? What is this path? Everything. But my point is whatever I said on that day, same day, please try to practice. At least next to 20 days, please do that. Next to 15, 22 days. Don't ignore any practice. This is the last module of your training. Last module in the sense, maybe you have security. Security, no one will ask you in interviews, and nobody will implement security every day in real-time projects. That's only one-time activity. You got my point? Module wise, you are having a separate module, but that logic implementation only one time in entire project people will do. But these are the things every day, every second, every minute you are going to write or you are going to touch in the real-time project every day. Okay, and these are all very important to understand REST APIs also. See, if I added tomorrow a REST controller annotation here, then this will become REST API services. Then this will become REST services. So if you see here, some magic I'll show you now. I just removed controller and I added @controller, right? Now I will send welcome request. Now see what you will get. Usually when you send welcome, I mean hello, what you got? This is all you got, right? Now after that, what I did, I removed controller and I added @REST controller. Now see the magic. And I'm same URL I'm sending. I'm not doing anything. What you got? You got only welcome back. Word, whatever. This is what, right? Whatever you given that came back as it is here. This is REST service. This is REST API. That means the second approach, development. This is the approach. So that's what I'm telling you. Very small differences will be there, but but practical point of view or functionality point of view, you will have huge difference. See, if I added controller, behavior is something. If I added REST controller, behavior is completely changing. With respect to one small annotation, one small word, the entire functionality, the entire way of development, or the entire terminology itself saying. Now these are all REST services. Why I made this controller as a REST controller. Now whenever I added a controller, and this I cannot call as REST APIs. These are all not REST APIs. Now I made it as controller again. Now again I made it as a controller. Now again, if I'm sending same request back again, this time you will see JSP file is getting loaded. So why I am showing these examples right away is at least you will realize there are a lot of annotations going to come as part of this module, and it's very confusing if you are not practicing every day, or every day if you are not practicing, it's very confusing. So my suggestion is if you want to become experts, please try to practice every day. That's why I'm going very slow tomorrow. So tomorrow what I will do is I'll take mm, continuation to web application only. We are done already, first web application point of view, but we will take a better application like. So tomorrow what I will do is, we will create user registration. So nothing but user first name, user last name, username, password, gender, like that we will take the details and you will click on the button called as submit or register button. So you will ask his first name, his last name. Okay, so gender, whatever it is, gender, username, unique username, or email ID or password. So then what user will do? User will enter his name. So Dilip, mail, like Dilip 123, password Dilip 123, like that. And you will click on the register button. Then what is our expectation? The data will come to controller layer and controller to service layer, service to repository layer, and repository to DB layer. So database. So this flow I'll take tomorrow. This flow I'll take. So to understand this flow, so how to load this form and all, we will see tomorrow. Once we are done that, then we will go with one more thing is login. So the moment user entered, clicking on login button, login hyperlink, then login form will open, then he will enter his username, his password, and he will click on login button. The moment he clicked on the login button, what should happen? Immediately, the request should go to the backend with that username, again controller, endpoint, service layer, repository layer, and DB. And DB. So in this case, again the request comes like, so request from here to service, service to repository, nothing but JPA and DB. And then what? Username password existed or not combination. If not existed, then repository will give message back to service layer, service to controller, and controller will give response back to the view layer. So these are the scenarios I'll cover tomorrow. So that means it's a completely full stack example, front end to back end to front end point of view. And that too we are involving until database. So we will involve JPA and business logic point of view. All these details I'll give you a lot of points tomorrow. So to make sure these examples are understanding perfectly, one by one, whatever things I told you today, please practice. Okay. So that's all for today. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. And if you have time, enable this context path and try the examples. So whatever the URL, see here. Now, for example, I'll show you before leaving. See here, I'm starting my application one more time. This time I given context path. Now, can you tell me this is going to work now? No. Now you're giving a wrong URL. How do you know that it is a wrong URL? So see here, it's saying like not found. How? Why not found? You given earlier also hello only it is working. Because now you added context path. So that means this context path is always mandatory. So this context path is always mandatory /Instagram/hello. So now see, you got the response. Now you can send anything. Welcome. Now context path is mandatory everywhere. Reset password. So now context path became common everywhere. So that is how, because from here, that's what, don't by heart any point of time. If you see here, it's very clear. I think I clear the logs. It's gone. Okay, so don't by heart. Whenever you started your application, here you are seeing, right? Like your application started with so and so context path. So that means every URL should contain that context path. If you see empty, then no context path. If you want to add, you have to add it. And change the port numbers, do all these experiments with your hands. Okay, do 10, 15, 20, no harm in that. But you are doing right thing if you are doing more number of examples and practically, because this is the real-time work. If you are not understanding this, don't join the microservices training also. I'm telling you very frankly. There is no need also. That much important it is. And you can't understand REST APIs also. If you are missing yesterday, today, and tomorrow, next day classes, you can't understand REST APIs also. Okay, because I shown you right now one small example also. If I made small change, it became REST service. So that is how things will happen. Just concentrate, especially these 2 weeks. That's all. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask me, and we will connect tomorrow with a new Spring Boot web application, and we'll implement this user operations, like especially this user registration, user login. 2 examples I'll show you, and then we'll move to the REST API implementation. Okay, so if you have time, just revise what is HTTP methods, what is HTTP protocol. If you have time, just go 10 to 15 minutes of things. What is HTTP methods and all. Anyway, I'll explain again. In the REST API point of view, I'll explain what is GET, what is POST, at what time, which method we have to choose. These are all I'll explain. But before that, do your groundwork. That's what my intention.